Hello grade 10, we are going to do a few more functions now. This first button here says display the absolute value of a negative number minus 563.3. Now absolute just means you're not using a sign, a negative or a positive number. Just takes a number and shows it as a number, whether it's positive or negative. So this is how you do it. Absolute, well, we're dealing with a real number, so we make a real number data type there, variable called rnum. I say rnum equals, and then abs is the function, and inside abs you have to put a real number. Now I'm putting minus 563.3 in brackets, and then that's going to store the absolute value of this number into rnum, and then we display rnum. Okay, float to string. Next one is display a random number. Now to use the random function, there's a function called random range, which is easy to use. The random number, the processor will generate a random number from 10 to 150. Inclusive means you're going to use the upper bound and lower bound must be included in your number that you want to display. In this case, we want to display the random number. Now, random number is always going to be an integer. So I'm going to declare an integer here, integer data type variable. And I'll say that variable will be equal to random range. That's the function you use, random range, and you can only use it if you've got math in the uses section at the top here. Right at the top you must make sure that there is math included in the uses section, which it is, and then you can use the random range function. Random range. Now what you do is you type the lower bound 10 and then the upper bound plus 1, and that's what you have to do. You have to add 1 to the upper bound of the range that you want to have a random number generated, and then we're going to display it 10 to 150. That's 10, 151. Just memorize that, and then we're going to just display it. Don't forget about int to string. Now random, you must remember, returns, random range returns an integer data type, not a real number. Okay, now we're going to go round the number 32.756. Now we're not rounding it to any decimal point, we're just rounding. So the word round, the function round, is all we have to use, and round will be an integer data type. Will return an integer data type. And then we just say rnum equals round. In brackets we put in our number that we want to round, which will be 32.756. There it is. There's a function called round, and that does return an integer. Okay. Now the next one we're going to do is display the number 4.675 as rands and cents. Well, we're going to use our other functions that we used before, frac and trunc, because you want to separate the rands from the cents, and the number will be 45.678. So easy way to do it is to declare two variables. Now remember, when you trunc you're going to have an integer, and when you frac you're going to have a real number. When you use trunc we have an integer data type, so our rand can be equal to trunc of that number, and the number will be called 45.678, and then R sense is equal to the frac of 45.678. Okay, so once we've got those two, you know that R sense is going to be 0.678. Well, we could round that 0.678 by using a function called round 2. So I'm going to do this. R sense equals round 2, and in brackets the 45.678 and then comma. Now the question is, do we use a minus? Because I know it's going to be 2 there, okay? We want to go to, let's put in a minus 2 there, because it's the 2 decimal points there. But actually R sense is not this, it's, sorry, my bad. Don't forget we're rounding R sense. R sense is going to be 0.678, remember, because we're fracking, we're getting the fraction part. So we're going to round R sense. So we've got R sense as 0.678, and then we're going to round 2. The round 2 function gives us a second parameter which tells us which decimal place do we want to round to. Now I'm putting a minus 2 there, and we're going to see if that works, because I'm going to display it and I'll run the program. And the rand is easy because that'll just be 45. Trunking just gets rid of the 0.678. So what I'm going to do to test my program, I'm going to put a show message in here, and I'll say int to string rand. We've got to display the rands, and then I'll just put in the word rands, okay, and then join that to a string float to string R sense plus sense, and then join that to the word sense. Okay, so we're displaying that. Now let's go run it and see if it works. I've got to move this onto the screen so you can see. Right, we're in methods, and we're over here, around the number 33. Okay, we've done that one already. Display the number for 45 as random sense. So there it is. So the minus 2 was to, you know, those 2 decimal places, it rounded it off. In fact, 0.68 cents, it actually should be 68, not so. So in order to do that, I can always just multiply by 100. And then we'll have our number as we want it. Let's put it back on there. And there it is. See, I just multiplied R cents by 100 to get my 68. Okay, that was just that little thing there that we had to do. Next one, decrease 16 by 2. So we're going to use something called decrement 16. So I've got a variable here called rnum, okay. But if I want to decrement, now decrement is a procedure, not a function. So I say DEC 16, 2. I'm going to decrement 16 by 2. And then show message. It's not 16 there, it's rnum. Rnum is 16. Show message int to string rnum. The reason why I had to declare variables so that I could actually display it. Because we decrement, meaning we're taking 2 away from 16. Now we don't have to have this comma and 2 there, we can just use node parameter, you'll see in the next activities. So decrement is a procedure. Can you see there's no equal sign involved here at all? It's a procedure call. Whereas the others that we've done up to now have all been functions. Okay, on the right hand side. Can you see they're all on the right hand side? This is the first one we have. that is actually a procedure. Now we're going to increase 16 by 3 over there. So there's rnum equal to 16. How do I increment rnc? 16, comma 3. And then just show message rnum. So instead of DEC we say rnc. It's also a procedure. And this one is increase 16 by 1. Well, all you do is say increment rnum. Hey, did I use 16 over here? Oh, it's supposed to be rnum, isn't it? rnum, sorry. So when I incremented rnum by 3, I said rnum equal to 16, and then I incremented by 3, and then I'll show it. In this one, I said rnum is equal to 16. Now I only want to increment it by 1, so that's all I do, and then I'll show rnum. So if you increment or decrement by 1, that's all you do. You just write DEC and then you put the variable inside brackets, and it must be an integer inside those brackets. So decrement and increment can only work on integers. Now you're going to do the activity for marks.